All right, James, man. Thank you very much for coming on to have a chat on the podcast.
No
Um,
problem.
yeah, I know I've been trying to organize it for a little while, so good to get a
Yeah,
time that suited us both.
yeah.
Um, so I've been following you on Instagram through Luke for a while, but
Oh, good.
yeah, but for people who don't know you or don't follow you yet, maybe I'd like to get a little bit of an introduction to, I suppose, how you got into training, and then how that progressed into you then working as a coach.
Yeah, sure. It's a very long story.
Go for it.
Um,
Got lots of time.
yeah, yeah, it's a long story. So I'm like you in the way that I just wasn't very physical in school. I wasn't very good at sports in school.
Say the least,
And
maybe.
yeah, I wasn't really, yeah, had no interest in them. I didn't mind kind of participating and running around and trying things, but as a whole, I would say I wasn't sporty in school.
Right.
And I didn't go near a dumbbell or a weight in school. When everyone else kind of was at least doing like a few bits and pieces, I just did nothing. I just thought it was stupid, right? So why
Mhm.
would you bother with that? And then what I was interested in school was art and drawing. So I was always really interested in anatomy. Because if you know a little bit about anatomy, it's going to make you better at life drawing. Someone's holding themselves a certain way, certain muscles are going to be
Yeah.
popping up and toned and stuff like that. So that was always a massive interest of mine. And then I went to art college then, and then I left because I just didn't get on with it at all. And what I did then was I went to do ski seasons because I just really liked skiing. So skiing was probably one of the sports that I did really, really enjoy, and you can't do it in Ireland. So went off and did that, and then, for
Okay.
whatever reason, I ended up working then in in retail in skiing and fitting ski boots, and then the kind of anatomy and biomechanics came back in again, and it was a big interest of mine. And I then decided to do a physio course, and one of the things that I picked up in working in the ski boots was obviously then I was working with some pretty interesting people. We did some training with a guy called, well, not him himself, but a guy out of his group. You know, have you ever heard Gary Ward and Anatomy in Motion?
Oh, I've heard Anatomy in Motion before. Haven't heard.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting stuff.
Is
Like
that a YouTube channel or something?
it's I suppose it's like a movement therapy.
Okay.
Um, I haven't really looked at it through the lens of, you know, I suppose what I've learned now in terms of, you know, the biopsychosocial model of pain and injury. But yeah, it's interesting, and I haven't really heard them say anything too wacky. They basically the theory is that if you whatever kind of movements people kind of fall into is you can get people out of pain and moving freer, but the gait cycle is what they say is the most preserved motor function that the body has for obvious reasons to get from A to B. And
Okay.
then their theory then is that if you can move people out of pain by moving them around on their feet and helping them distribute their weight in their feet a bit better. And then the knock on effect then is they just kind of let go of their pain in a sense.
Mhm.
But yeah, I've seen anyone I know who does it uses it in conjunction with a biopsychosocial model. So
Cool.
it's very, very interesting. So I worked with him, or I didn't work with him, but we did some training with them. So I was like, that was really amazing. The other thing that happened to me working in the ski boot fitting with the biomechanics and things like that is we ended up doing footwear for running.
Okay.
And then the barefoot running craze was huge. So we had sales reps
Hmm.
coming in from the likes of Vivo Barefoot and Vibram.
Yeah.
And we
The frog
had
shoes, as
these
I like to
set.
call them.
Yeah, yeah. What you say?
I said the frog shoes, as I like to call them.
Yeah, I know. And the PT refers to them as celibacy shoes as well.
I used to there was a guy that I knew who used to wear those like just all the time outside the gym as well. And
Yeah,
it looked very good.
totally. Yeah, they're odd looking. At least the Vivos, they kind of look a bit more
Yeah.
conventional. But you know, their whole marketing is just starting to really sort of piss me off. I have to say, they're really gone down a bad road of, you're fucked if you don't wear our shoes. Basically, you're gonna fall apart. That's another story. But then we were getting these sales reps in from Brooks and Saucony and Asics, and then we're getting sales reps in from Vibra. I was like, someone's not right here, like, because basically the moral is the lesson from the story is that the footwear industry is just completely full of crap.
Sure, I
Basically,
went to get a pair of
yeah, yeah,
good running shoes for the first time after doing running for
good,
like a year.
yeah,
And I actually got like an honest salesperson because my girlfriend at the time really wanted to buy me a nice, expensive pair of shoes for
yeah,
Christmas. And she was, like fair enough, had assumed just from talking to salespeople in shoe shops before that the more money you pay, the better the shoe is, basically.
mm,
And the guy who was there was like, look, you can spend €70 on these shoes here, and you'll get like 80 to 90% of the noticeable benefits. And to get anything further than that, you'd be spending upwards of €150 on a pair of shoes and
mm.
very like minimal difference. So, and they talk about like all the different like foam technology and stuff like that.
There's
Sure,
gels and
I'm sure
stuff.
you
Yeah,
do notice the difference if you're like a high level runner, but I'm like, look, I can barely run a 5K in 25 minutes without coughing up a lung. I don't need €150 on shoes.
exactly. And the thing is, like, the evidence just points to finding a pair that you find comfortable,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and that's it. And actually, there's better outcomes from ignoring the advice of the gait analysis they do in the retail setting and stuff like that
Mm.
as well. It's like it's not a sports medicine facility. It's a fucking running shop.
Yeah.
With someone who's probably in their first year of college doing it as a job.
Mhm.
It's just.
But people come in
However,
and they
if
go on the
yeah,
treadmill and they see the little
yeah,
scan thing
it,
of their skeleton.
it's
They're like, oh wow, so
it's a marketing tool.
yeah.
I would stand by the fitting process though, in terms of trying to make the footwear more comfortable.
Oh,
That
totally. Yeah.
is that,
Yeah.
that is and insoles and stuff like that. They do help to make the footwear more comfortable, but
Mm.
that's in line with the principle of finding footwear that's comfortable. And
Yeah.
then certainly from a skiing point of view, it actually does yield more performance because
Totally.
skiing is the furthest fucking thing from a natural movement. So, yeah. But if you are on the topic of footwear and honest salespeople, I did work with one of the most smartest dudes I've ever worked with. He has worked for an orthotics company, understands everything about this, but he still falls back on that principle of we'll just make it comfortable.
Yeah.
And he is based out in Wicklow, actually, in Charles County. His name's Neil Smith. If you ever just are in Blessington and you just want to talk to the most interesting man in the world, head in there. If you need some hiking shoes or running shoes, or he's like driven a bus in Chicago, and he's cross country skied for Great Britain. He's just epic dude. He lives on the side of a mountain in Wicklow and runs up it every day. And
Wow.
he's the shit. So if you're ever out in Wicklow, check him out. I learned a lot of what I know about a lot of things from this guy. So then I was exposed to the barefoot running. I did the barefoot running thing. And it was probably just that kind of attitude that I have. I think you have it as well. Is like, I've been told, people are telling me I can't do this, and I'm like, well, I can,
Yeah.
and so I'm going to do it because people are
Being
like,
a
no, you
stubborn
need,
motherfucker.
yeah, you need these fancy shoes, right? So I was fucking running around Bushy Park completely barefoot.
God.
I did, I did a half marathon in a pair of sandals. I did my full marathon in a time of 3 hours, 28 minutes in a pair of Vivos.
Mhm.
And I kind of put that one to bed. I guess you can do it in whatever footwear you like.
Mm.
But, and then I suppose like, that was like, I think it was just, it added an element of fun to running. You were kind of feeling this kind of movement click and this kind of efficiency. And I don't know, you probably get a great satisfaction out of that yourself with the lifting. It's like, when you feel a new movement is dialed in and it
Yeah.
clicks, and
Yeah.
it's like that's really satisfying. So that it added an element of that to the running, and I think it has its place. But obviously, it's sold as like running techniques equals no pain, and that's obviously very
Yeah.
similar narrative
It,
to
it
to
always it always
yeah
ends up
to
getting sold as a panacea, and it's not.
yeah it's the same as the lifting thing. Your perfect technique, you won't get hurt, but it's
Yeah.
obviously not true. So that was running. Then I got injured from running, and I decided to start lifting. But I was deeply, deeply, deeply insecure about it because I hadn't ever done it, and everyone else had at least lifted a few weights here and there in school.
Yeah.
So I trained. I trained in my mum's shed. She had a cable machine, a few dumbbells. I did that. I actually waited to the point where someone said to me, "Oh, you're looking like you're lifting," and then I was like, "Okay, maybe I could go into a gym now," which is completely daft.
Yeah, well,
And
that's what holds so many people back, right? They're like,
yeah,
I'm not strong enough to start training, and you're like, you kind of have that arse ways there.
well, I can totally relate to that, like, because I
Yeah,
was that insecure,
but
and I
actually,
had
when
that
I
look.
think about it, that's how I started as well. I started training
Yeah,
at home up in my
yeah,
attic, and we had a cable machine too, and I just did
yeah.
cables and body weight stuff.
Yeah, probably everyone did, I suppose. Or, but I missed the boat in terms of just fucking around with the lads and your teenager in the gym. So I kind of missed that at that one.
Mm.
And yeah, I loved it. I loved it. I found that thing that I like from sport again and lifting that like that I liked it with skiing or even throwing a frisbee is that clicking of a movement and that kind of
And sorry, just there's a missing link there that I wanted to cover about.
yeah,
You got injured doing the running.
yeah.
What was
Mm.
it that made you decide to give lifting a go? Because you said that you thought it was kind of something that you thought of as just stupid when you were a teenager.
Well, it was kind of I was started the physio course at the time,
Mm.
so I felt that at least now it's kind of like this thing of I think it must be like an ADHD thing that I have is that you have to have like this high level detail knowledge of something before you're willing to do it. So I felt
Right.
like that gave me an authority to start the
Mm.
training. Is that at least if I'm going into a gym, I'm probably know more about the human body than everyone else in there. So stupid way of thinking about things, but that is one of the things. And obviously, yeah, like the fact that I was doing the barefoot running and the running technique, I still got hurt. It just demonstrates the fact that it was down to terrible load management. I actually got hurt after my marathon because during my marathon and the training leading up to the marathon, I was following a program,
Okay.
and then I did it in this amazing time, like 3 hours 28 minutes. What the fuck, my first marathon, and it was like you said with your 200 kilo squat. It's like, what do I do now?
Yeah.
And then I was in,
All too
and
attainable.
yeah, and then bringing in like biopsychosocial stuff. There was really not very nice stuff going on in my life at the time,
Hmm.
and I hurt my ankle, and then the running up until then had been a real mental health outlet for me, and then that crumbled, and then the running, and then the pain got even worse, and then I just try and
Right.
go out and I wasn't running for anything. I was just going out and running as fast as I could to burn off steam, and the ankle got sore, and yeah, then I've, I'd heard that just, getting a bit stronger is a good way to go. And I wasn't able to run. I just decided to start something new. I got into lifting, and that's how when I was eventually sucked up the balls to go to a gym, I was still too insecure to do it. So I hired Luke as a coach, and it was the best thing I ever did.
Great.
And learned pretty much most of what I know between himself and probably yourself and a few others. But yeah, what a great person to have met straight away. I went into the gym. There was every PT's picture and like, on the wall. It's actually the gym I work in now. It was under a
Hmm.
different name at the time. And I saw like this like big jack dude who probably was carrying a little bit of body fat as well. And it just said like strength training. And I was like, I'm gonna hire him.
Yeah.
Because the other people were like, six packs ripped.
Yeah.
I'm not going to relate to them at all. This guy knows how to. This guy could give me what I want. Somehow I just knew that, and he was, yeah, absolutely epic coach. Uh,
He is.
stuck
Yeah. He's
with
a great
him,
guy.
just stuck with him for like 5 years, on and off, online, back and
Oh,
forth.
okay. It was that long ago. Right.
Yeah, is it 7 years ago? Six, yeah, 7 years ago. I only bumped into him the other day. He's working, doing a bit of bouncing
He
in
was telling me that.
town.
Yeah. I would
Yeah,
not want to fuck with him on a night out.
no, no, no. He's a teddy bear. We were at an engagement party. We were giving him like bits of cake, and he was like sneaking off under the cameras to like eat it. And stuff. He's like, "You can't give me cake. I'm working." And then he'd like, I'd handed the cake to Grant, and he'd like walk over the corner, hide under the camera, and munch the cake. Loves his grub, like.
That's gas.
So yeah, that's how I got into lifting, and then I was doing the physio course at the same time. and it all kind of tied in a little bit in that regard. And I knew that I need to gain some sort of an authority in the gym if I'm going to
Yeah.
be a physio, right? But that then I didn't do the physio thing. I went foolishly and tried to chase the kind of corporate dollar, working in sales in an aim to try and maybe get a mortgage and all that sort of stuff. And I sort of missed the boat in terms of the continuous professional development with the physio thing.
Right.
Uh, and then in the lockdown, I lost the sales job and kind of had time to think about, because I was furloughed, like I actually don't really like it. And
Yeah.
I wanted to go back and do the physio. And I was like, I didn't really like the physio that much anyway, for like basically lots of reasons. It was,
Well, I can imagine
yeah,
just from talking, I don't know if it's
yeah,
I don't know if it's an accurate representation of all the different types of courses out there, but there are a couple people in Ireland who told me that they're doing physio courses. One of them is like a FETAC kind of like entry level course.
yes, yes,
But the stuff this guy is being taught is outrageous. Like literally, like your emotional trauma is stored in your fascia, and you have to do deep tissue massage to release it on people.
yeah,
Um, all of the
100%.
classic shit about everybody's glutes are dysfunctional and stuff. And like,
Yeah.
would there have been a lot of stuff? I'm assuming the fascia stuff would have been would have
There
been
was different, yeah, there was different lecturers who would bring different things to their teaching, right? And it was actual complete head fuck, because we had to do intern in a clinic as well. So what your intern clinic where we were treating live patients under supervision.
yeah.
So what you were talking about there is there are a lot of different neuromuscular physical therapy things, courses and stuff like that. And recently they've had to come in with Koru, and now the chartered physio thing is kind of gone from what I can tell. And then you can be Koru registered, you can call yourself a physio. But
All right. So this was
there's
confusing because I had been
yeah,
under the
there's different
impression.
levels to it. There's different levels to it. Yes, there's different levels to it.
Yeah, I'd been under the impression I had thought that physiotherapist was a protected term in Ireland, and then
It
recently
was until
told me that
recently,
it's
yeah.
not. But that changed then.
So basically, yeah. So the course I did, there was huge like kerfuffle, and there was a cutoff point to where you could do the course and then still call yourself a physical therapist or physio. And then we were the last ones through the cutoff point, and now actually the course is gone because they couldn't sell the fact that you can call yourself a physical therapist or physio anymore.
Okay.
So
So anybody can
yeah,
call themselves a physio in Ireland now.
yeah, but I'm actually not sure 100% on how it works, but there's the chartered physios. The difference between me and the course I did and the chartered physio course, or the physio courses in like UCD and stuff like that, is that
Yeah.
they do hospital based work,
Mhm.
and a little bit more detail in terms of like serious trauma rehabilitation, like post surgery rehabilitation, or
Yeah.
um, you know sort of pathologies rather than just neuromuscular stuff. So for the most part, like of course I did, and a chartered physios, the difference is that they can do hospital stuff. But from a neuromuscular point of view, um, it's much the same. But yeah, we did like get taught all the wacky stuff. And it was very heavy with hands-on and massage. And then we had this one amazing lecturer then in the third year of the college who exposed two of them actually, Declan Kearney and Terry Christie. So those names, if you need a decent physio in Dublin, or Terry Christie's in Dublin, and Terry Christie is in Mayo, and then there's another one then,
Declan
Anthony
Kearney's
Claffey.
in Mayo, is he?
Yeah, yeah, and then Anthony Claffey is another one. He was a colleague of mine, but
Okay.
there's just not that many that really like adhere to the biopsychosocial model that much.
Uh-huh.
It, then we were getting taught all this biopsychosocial stuff, and then we were going into the student clinic, and like you might be treating a patient who's, you know, telling you that they're like their life is falling apart and they're stressed and their back is sore, and you're
Mhm.
trying to kind of, you know, sort of communicate the biopsychosocial model to them. And then the lecturer is saying is that you can't just will your patient to get better. You have to do something for them. You have to like give
Yeah.
them a treatment, and it's like, which is it, guys? Do you know what I mean? Like, so that was very
Yeah, there's a lot of
frustrating.
contradictory viewpoints being taught to you then.
Yes, yeah, that kind of turned me off the whole process, to be honest.
And sorry, just for the people who are listening, they might be thinking like, what the hell does biopsychosocial mean?
Oh
Essentially,
yeah,
we're just talking about the fact that pain is multifactorial, and
yes,
um obviously you had hands-on teaching with this, so correct me if I'm wrong, but uh, my perception of how physio is taught, certainly in Ireland anyway, and it seems like most countries, is a very
mm.
heavy focus and bias towards an assumption about the role that biomechanics play in people's pain.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
this
definitely,
kind of
yeah,
idea that there's a neutral, symmetrical norm that human beings are meant to adhere to. And if you deviate outside that, and certainly
yeah,
the idea is that if you load that in any way, you're basically asking to get hurt. And that if somebody presents with pain or an injury and they have any of these things that have been deemed dysfunctional movements, then
yeah,
the main thing you're meant to be focusing on is getting them to move a certain way, as opposed,
exactly.
like you're saying, somebody has stressors in their lives, relationships that are fucked up, or a lot of stress
Yes,
at work.
this plays a massive role,
Yeah. I
and
mean,
I've
I think
seen
one
it
of the
first.
best examples of that is the whole fibromyalgia thing. Like people who literally have
Yes,
no structural damage that's visible in any kind of tests and are in
yeah,
immense pain. And it
yes,
seems to have a massive correlation with mental health diagnoses like depression and stuff like that.
yes. It's a huge correlation, I think, with trauma, but
Mhm.
certainly anyone I know on a personal level who has fibromyalgia, there's a common link is that there's pretty grim trauma in their
Yeah.
history. Yeah, I mean, this is it. It just doesn't fully explain people's pain at
Yeah.
all. And if you're not educating people on the multifactorial aspect to it, you're doing them a disservice and setting them up for failure.
Yeah.
And you're not encouraging them to move forward and become aware of their pain and become aware of things that might trigger it. Um,
Yeah.
so things can there's like the neural tagging with pain as well. That was just such an interesting concept that we learned about in college. Have you heard of this?
Neuro tagging.
Like neural tagging, it's just like the pain gets associated with something. Like there was like a this
Oh, so
guy.
like, you
Yeah,
become resistant to certain movements or sensitive to certain.
no, it's actually like this guy Terry Christie, the third lecturer. He tells this patient that he had, and he'll often get. I think he'll get people to almost diary their pain so they can see things and really talk about the history of it, really try and understand it. But
Mhm.
basically, like a guy can get like being bullied in work, right? Just
Yeah.
fucking miserable going into work, like borderline, really devastating mental health impact from going into work. And then for whatever reason, he just does overload his back doing something,
Yeah.
like genuinely overloads the back doing something and hurts his back, and then is told to take a week off work
Uh-huh.
and probably noceboed with the back pain in some way as well. So he's scared of his back. He's sitting at home from work, and basically the easiest way to describe it is the brain is like, well, this is fucking brilliant. We don't have to go into work anymore,
Yeah.
and that's because of this
Right. Okay.
back pain. And the theory then is that the brain is like, we're never going back to work. Turn that up. And then you go back to work, back is sore, oh, back sore. And the person often doesn't see the correlation between it.
And that's a very hard conversation to have with somebody
Yeah,
because
of course. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
don't want to kind of accuse them of something, but it can be a subconscious thing that's occurred.
No, but if you give people enough time, I think they reckon they can sometimes come to these conclusions themselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it is quite alarming. And if you do know anyone in chronic pain and you start to think like this, you can probably see things that they can't quite easily.
Mhm.
Like my ankle, for example, when it was sore from running, I was just so scared of it. I was like, I'm going to lose this outlet. There's so much crazy shit going on in my life that's stressing me out. How am I going to cope? And that obviously just makes it much worse. So that was I suppose, a very frustrating element of doing the physio course. is that they only really touched on that, and the focus was definitely on biomechanics and muscles this and muscles that, and
And it's
it's
such a
kind of
strange one to me because
yeah,
I inherently trusted for so long that there would be really substantial evidence that they're taught in college to back all of that stuff up. And especially like
no,
there's a big crossover. Like I noticed a lot of people who went into physiotherapy um when I was in college were people who had aspirations of doing like other things that require a lot of critical thinking, like
mm,
medicine or sometimes even engineering and stuff like that. And it's just crazy to me how easily it's just kind of accepted as the status quo, and people never really think to question it until somebody comes along and goes like, well, why do you believe that? What is that based on? And then you work back and it's primarily uh, a number of kind of, not to use the word guru like disrespectfully, but like prominent kind of figures that emerged in
perpetuated
that physio field in the 20th century who developed their own kind of models for explaining phenomenons of pain and injury, but they were just models and hypotheses that hadn't actually been rigorously tested. And it seems
yeah,
like it just kind of got accepted and created as a teaching structure.
for sure. Well, it's like that feedback loop. It's a simple explanation. People like that.
I mean, like there's
People.
a guy who messaged me. He said I think he got asked to be like a guest lecturer for strength and conditioning or something like that in a
Mm,
college in the States. And he was saying like this professor just totally turned on him because he started questioning the whole people having inactive glutes kind of statement, you know?
yeah,
And like
glute
his point was
amnesia.
basically like, look, I'm standing up right now. How can you say that my glutes aren't activating properly? Like I wouldn't be able to stand up. I'd have some kind of neurological issue.
Yeah,
And the professor just started shouting at him, basically saying that it's been scientifically proven that unless you train the glutes properly, they're going to fire in, like quote, improperly, you know? And
yeah,
it's like, what does that even mean?
I know. Yeah, we were taught all that kind of stuff
Yeah, so
in
I think
college.
I would find that very hard. I feel that it would be easier to go through a physio education and then learn that whole biopsychosocial stuff afterwards than
Yeah,
be aware of it as you're going through the process, having to almost kind of unlearn some of the evidence-based stuff that you
yeah.
already know.
Like we were like looking back now, we were like taught this kind of glute strength test. Basically like a resisted clamshell you do in your client on the plinth,
Mm.
and the lecturer's like, it's amazing that people just don't have this glute strength. It's terrible. I mean, how can they not? Of course, they're going to be have a bad back. And I've had athletes that are like top athletes on my plinth, and they fail this test. It's like, well, maybe that's a sign that your test
Yeah,
is
that's it. It's
bullshit.
the lot. That's like they're
Yeah,
almost at the point.
yeah,
And then they just take the complete opposite logic of like, well, surely it doesn't fucking matter then if there's people who can perform
yeah,
amazingly. And like, why would you expect somebody to be good at a movement they've never done before?
yeah. Like the athletes never done a clamshell,
Yeah.
you know, but they can squat their twice the body weight, so whatever.
Yeah. It's like
Yeah,
I wouldn't take an arm wrestler and expect them to squat 200 kilos because it's just not a part of their sport. You know, like
absolutely.
obviously they need some leg strength, but I wouldn't be like, aha, you're dysfunctional because you can't do this movement that's got nothing to do with
Yeah,
what you
I
actually have
know.
to do.
And then at the end of the course, you're kind of left with the choice. It's like, do you want to just do the kind of in and out, kind of rub the sore bit stuff, uh, or do you want to really dive deep into helping people with their chronic pain and not really given any kind of a framework to work that, just told that that's a thing by like one or two lecturers compared to 10 other lecturers. So you're just kind of like, oh, what do I do now? And it would have been a lot easier if I just kind of, like a lot of people in the course just kind of said, that biopsychosocial thing is a bit wishy-washy. I'll just do
Yeah.
the or I'll consider it. It's, I'll bring it into my practice a bit, but it's kind of airy fairy. It would have been a lot easier, but I was like, I'm not okay with that. I'm not okay with that. And at the time, I was training with Luke, and then I had a friend of mine who was really into jiu-jitsu and had always played a lot of sport, and he just was always in pain. He's always injured. And then I was like, why don't you just come and lift some weights with me? See what happens. See if it
Yeah.
just makes you a little bit less likely to be sore. And that was the case. And he was like, best thing I ever did. And then I was like, okay, if I if chances are if I'm a physio, I'm probably just gonna have people lifting barbells anyway,
Yeah.
So like why not just go and do the thing? I do attract I have the physio thing qualification, not practicing obviously on my bio in the gym I work in, and I do attract people who are trying to manage pain, and that's enough for me to use it in that
And do
regard.
you
So
find, does that ever create a certain expectation? Like I would imagine a lot of people with, like, if they see somebody as like a personal trainer and they have a physiotherapy qualification or background, they're immediately thinking, oh,
mm,
this is great. He's going to be able to do like some massage on me and stuff like that at the end of the
yeah,
session, or show me how to
yeah.
activate certain muscles, not like the other coaches are able to. Does it ever create that expectation? And then you're like, well, actually, we're just gonna lift weights anyway.
um I think no, I think they're pretty prepared for that already. I think
Okay.
yeah, I think they're usually pretty prepared for that. I've never had that. I certainly have had like they're shocked when I tell them like, you know, don't worry about that pelvic tilt thing. It's fine.
Yeah.
you
But
know,
at least you have a certain
yeah.
level of like credibility and authority to be able to say that. Because when I say that to some people, sometimes I can
Mm.
see in their head they're thinking like, all right, well, this is clearly
Oh,
I'm
I
going to be
feel-
biased because I'm a strength coach. So of course I'm going to tell them that they just need to stop worrying about the pelvic tilt and do the deadlift.
yeah, yeah.
But because you
I
have that
get that
background,
too.
at least you can say, well, I've studied this.
I get it too. They're still doubtful. Most of what I
Yeah.
do with that is just that, just myth busting. Really, it's like
Yeah.
that. It is just myth busting. Oh, I'm injured running, and the core is weak, and you're like, tell me about your running training. Oh, I just kind of run the 5K loop around my house
I
every
just signed up
day.
for a 10K and started running and gave myself a month to prepare.
No, the one I see the most, and you see it out in the roads, is on any runner I've ever talked to, like, because I really am, I really like running, is
Mm.
they'll say, yeah, I just run the same route, like at the same speed, kind of as fast as I can every time.
Yes, there's
Um,
no variation in the loading.
I'm just like, it's a one rep max every time. It's like, it's a one rep max every time they go out. It's like you're
They
coming
just
back
run
tired.
flat out intensity as fast as they can.
Yeah, you're coming back wrecked from the run. They're like, oh yeah, yeah, I'll give it everything I have every time.
Mm.
You're like, okay, what like your currently one rep max is, or 10 rep max in squats is 85. Like if you came in there and did that every day, what would happen? They're like, oh yeah. So that's a really common one. If you're a personal trainer, listen to this, and you're dealing with a runner, like you got to find out about their running training because chances are they're just doing the same thing as hard as they can every time.
Well, I
And
find a lot of the same principles of smart training are really
yeah,
very similar between the two. Like there's a guy I do online coaching with, and he does running 3 times a week. I've never had him. The only time I've ever had him push past like an RPE at 8.5 or 9 has been testing his 5K time. And then
yes,
the rest of his runs are somewhere between about a 5 and a 7. And
yes.
just yesterday there, or whenever the last time that he did a 5K distance, we were
Mm,
actually on a call earlier and we didn't even realize, but he had run 13 seconds faster than his previous like 5K PB attempts at an RPE 5 to 6 that I'd prescribed. And we were like, oh shit, that was actually 13 seconds faster. And he was like, I didn't even realize
mm,
that.
that's
And
crazy.
there was no hard, like super hard training days. He has one where he does like a seven to kind of 8 effort at a 2K distance. But people
Mm,
just think you have to go flat out all the time to make progress.
that's it. Yeah, and they're actually testing their 5K every time they go out.
Yeah.
That's what I
That's
see
a
a lot of.
that's a big
And it's
mistake.
just
I see people, they don't understand the difference
yes,
between testing and building their fitness.
exactly. And you know, in reality, if you want to get faster to 5K, you need to run for an hour very, very slowly.
Hmm.
Like that's probably one of the better ways to get good at it. It certainly, that's what I found from my own training, and it's a common enough practice in running clubs. If even if your specialty race is 5K,
Yeah.
and you're got other guys at the club whose specialty race is half, you still go out and do the long run together.
Hmm.
Like everyone's trying to build that huge base, and most people will set a 5K record like after doing a marathon because they just have a huge capacity.
Yeah. Well, I guess
So
it's like building muscle for strength. Like
yeah,
it's
it's
building
just
your
building
base.
your cardio. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's building your cardio. So like it's just trying to convince people that they just need to run slowly a lot to get faster at 5K, but they don't want to do that because it
Yeah.
doesn't, like Kill O'Connor or not, like Keane would say, it doesn't upend them enough.
Yeah.
They don't think it's doing anything. So yeah, that is definitely something to watch out for, and it's just sort of assumed as well. It's just one of these things that people accept is that running is just injurious. That's just the way it is. But
Yeah. I think
everybody,
I think it's
everyone,
just social media doesn't help with.
mm,
I mean, I think coaches would really do a lot for like improving their perception of what the average person thinks about training. If you just type in the hashtag like fitness or fit fam into Instagram and just scroll through some of the
oh,
posts
it's
on there. Now, ignoring the fact that
mm,
the majority of it is basically softcore porn, the stuff that's actually training,
it is,
it's
yeah.
just it's all that stuff. It's all people finishing workouts in like a puddle of their own sweat, gasping for breath,
Hmm.
lifts that look like rep maxes every single time.
Hmm.
Um, and so it doesn't really, it's not that surprising that people come away with this idea that, you know, the whole no pain, no gain thing. Like
Yeah,
it's not inherently wrong, but it's not the type of pain. It's like you're looking for the type of pain that's like consistent, boring work done over the course of months and years, not going into the gym and destroying yourself every time.
exactly, exactly. And I think a lot of coaches who are very good with the resistance training side of things, they just don't understand how simple it actually is to avoid huge issues of pain in runners. Most of the time, it's very
Mhm.
simple. You need to just slow them down
Yeah.
and get them to focus, get them to think long term about their training. It's exactly the same as they'll say the same things to their clients. You know, you hear it on the gym floors, and you know, just don't go to failure, progress slowly, muscle takes time. But then there's clients saying, oh, you know, I just get sore from running, and they're like, ah, that's just running. It's like
Yeah. Yeah.
without ever questioning the training of it, because probably they assume running training is very, very complicated, which it isn't really. It's
No.
just run far for a long time at a slow pace, and then run very short distances very fast,
Hmm.
and then rest in between those two things. So intervals and huge long efforts at a very low intensity, and that'll make you faster over a 5K or a 10K or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And it's simple. It's simple. It's just build a base. But for whatever reason, it's like running's injurious. But there you go. Yeah, that's another one of those things.
I wanted to also touch on. I know that you've started talking a lot more about having ADHD on
Yeah, yeah,
your
yeah.
contents online. Were you were you diagnosed with that a long time ago, or was it something that you only realized recently?
I was diagnosed in school, and the process of that wasn't in any way kind of what's the word? They didn't really work with me on that one. I was a pain in the arse in school. I wasn't doing my homework. I wasn't studying, and then I was given this medication, and I was told I had this thing. So as soon as I left school, I was like, "Well, fuck that. That's clearly a problem with school and not me."
Yeah.
And then only recently, when we had a small baby and stuff like that, I realized that actually there's a huge kind of side to this, which makes it hard to have relationships and handle stress and
Hmm.
communicate and you know keep calm. So I kind of had to take it more seriously in the last few years or in the last few months. And then it kind of tied in with how I niched down. I started talking to a charity group in the UK, ADHD adults, and yeah, I found it's my niche. I was like, this is definitely how I should niche myself online.
Is yeah,
Um,
it's the people that you're kind of most passionate about helping.
well, yeah, and it's like I'm passionate about helping them, but I want to coach people online, and I'm not going to be this epic, a like household name, just like you're not either. So the only way you're going to get people to listen to you online is by being vulnerable, being open, and creating a niche, and
Yeah,
having at least a small group of people give a shit about what you're saying.
yeah,
And being but it's hard to do because you have to share a little bit of yourself, more than you would if you're just going on there doing generic kind of,
yeah.
this is my creamy chicken wrap shite or whatever it might be. uh,
Lord knows there's more than enough videos like that at the moment.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So it's and I did used to think that the niching thing online is quite cynical and salesy, and you do see it as done in that way a lot. Like, I help dads lose weight, and I was like, whatever,
Yeah, well, the thing
but
that not to interrupt you, the thing that I find where that gets bollocksy is when it's not actually authentic to the person. So like
no,
if I see like a 19-year-old saying, I help dads who've fallen out of exercise, lose weight. Like,
yes,
what the fuck do you know about being a dad or being like in your mid to late
exactly,
30s? But
yes,
if the niching is actually like I'd say a lot of people could niche themselves literally just by being more vulnerable, like you're saying, and actually like sharing who they are
yeah,
as a person. And you'd kind of almost just naturally start attracting people who resonate with that because I've taken on a good few more clients recently, and when I've asked them about like what was the deciding factor, they were like, I just resonate with your personality and who you are, because like everybody's putting up the exact same information for the most part. Might
yeah.
disagree on biopsychosocial model this and
This
straight
dude's
bar
into,
deadlift, trap bar deadlift, but
yeah,
the average person looking at that just sees
don't give a fuck,
personal
yeah.
trainer talking about strength training. So really the only thing that you have that's unique that you can show to people is who you are as a person, because that's the only thing that somebody else can't copy. Whereas
Exactly,
the recipe for the
exactly.
low calorie creamy chicken wrap thing can be done a million different times.
Yeah, and like I've had to even unfollow, like, no bullshit physio and function. What is it? The other one, I've actually even forgot. Certified personal trainers. I've unfollowed those guys because just I love that stuff and it's
Mm-hmm.
something I know a lot about. But I it's not what I'm trying to do on social media. I'm not trying to consume. I'm trying to create
Yeah.
something that's mine. And yeah, like you said there, like I mean, like people are gonna look at you and they're like, this dude's into, warlocks and fucking wizards and shit, and he's still fucking jacked. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I want to train with this dude. And it's like, it's actually self-preservation from your own standpoint as a coach. If you are looking to go online, is that you won't be able to show up every day and be unauthentic,
Yeah.
you
No, it's
know?
energy
And if,
drain.
yeah, and if you're not talking to a specific niche, you're not being authentic because you're just trying to talk to everyone, which isn't authentic.
Yeah. I
Talk,
found
not,
that with, sorry, go on.
yeah, trying to talk to just the general population, even if you're not unauthentically geared towards a niche, like you're a teenager talking to dads, even if you're just a dude going on there trying to attract people to do online coaching with you, if it's you're casting a huge net, your chances are no one's really going to give a shit what you're saying, and that's going to be exhausting too.
Yeah.
So you can do it for like, I mean, you want to help people as a coach. Like you want to get that fulfillment, and you're not going to do it unless you market yourself. You have to give yourself an opportunity to help someone,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like I haven't been doing this long. I'm primarily face to face right now, and I've only really niched down the last month or two. But like, and I know followers on your account aren't indicative of success, but they do tell you a story, and I've got 200 followers in like couple of weeks,
Mm.
just
Great.
from just from sharing that part of me, and yeah, it's like people are like, this guy's going to be able to relate to the fact that I'm going to get overwhelmed easily. I'm going to get frustrated. I'm not very good at planning. I'm not that organized. So that's my big thing, or that I'm a bit insecure, or I have rejection sensitivity about going into the gym. So that's why people relate to me, you know. So
Yeah,
it's
and I wouldn't have a great understanding of how ADHD manifests outside of just the general perception that it affects your ability to focus on certain things. But like
yeah.
what would you say is like the things that you notice about yourself that you would struggle with more than the average person then?
Well, there's the focusing and there's the career side of things, and there's obviously the studying side of things, which is very obvious. But for me, like, I have a short temper. um, I get frustrated
And
easily.
that's associated with ADHD?
Yes,
Okay.
short temper, rejection sensitivity. So you're almost kind of deciding you don't like someone before they get a chance not to like you, because you feel the pain of the rejection of that very, very strong.
Okay.
Um, there's for me as well. Yeah, just mainly like a short temper. I'm always late for stuff. Time blindness is one of them. Um, uh, just oversharing things, being a bit too much, too open, and
Yeah.
not read, not adhering to sort of uh, social kind of like normal situations. You might misread situations. Not, you don't actually misread them, because that's more of kind of maybe an ASD thing. You just like just blatantly don't give a fuck about
Right.
watching. Yeah, so like in school, it kind of I was a bit different in school. It kind of stopped me from getting bullied, because I was just so mad and so fucking like I would say anything, and
Hmm.
I would say the craziest shit to the teacher and make the whole class laugh. So people were just like, "Don't slag him because he's got a sharp tongue, and
Yeah.
he doesn't care in the moment that you're going to hit him back in the nose. He
Right.
doesn't care. He will say
Yeah.
the thing anyway, and then get hit, and then go, "Oh God, wish I didn't say that." But you still, if you're the bully, you're going to look like an idiot, because he doesn't care about the consequences of the
Yeah.
situation. So like I get like terrible road rage, and I get like I see fucking red, um and then I suppose like it's not one thing that's like day to day. It just sort of like catches up with you over the whole course of your life.
Sure.
You just sort of find yourself like you haven't really gotten as far in your career as maybe your peers, and it just sort of slowly kind of drags you down. It's like you're not blind. It's like you're. It's not. It's an impairment. I would say more than anything.
Okay. So
And
you don't feel like it offers any kind of like unique advantages then,
no,
how your mind works.
like people say it's a superpower. Like, yeah, you can get very hyper focused on certain things, which I do as well. I can
Yeah.
get really, really, really good at them. But everything else goes out the window. Like I'll just sit
Right.
there and you know, like during the lockdown, I was making bread, and like I was obsessed with it, like sourdough bread.
That
I
was really
forget.
a thing. People got really
I,
into making banana
I
bread in
was
the lockdowns.
banana bread's easy. The sourdough is actually very hard, but I was like
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I've heard that's pretty tough.
obsessed. I would stand there, make my dog forget to eat. I would just be so focused on it. So there's that side of it as well. If
Mm.
anyone is looking to understand and like an evidence-based psychoeducation approach to ADHD, there's the ADHD Atlas podcast on Spotify. It's absolutely brilliant. They will give you what the literature says on every topic you
Mm.
can think of. And in the place of not having any literature, which is often the case because it's quite niche, they just offer kind of personal reflections or
Yeah, yeah.
theories as to why things might be the case. But it just is everything kind of times 10,
And
it's just full on.
do you ever get annoyed? Like I won't lie, like when you're describing.
Impulsivity is another one.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah,
So,
like making rash
yeah, like,
decisions
yeah,
without
just
thinking
go.
about the.
Yeah, yeah. You've first-hand experience that one.
Do you ever get annoyed? Like, I won't lie, like listening to you describe that there were certain things you were saying, like, oh yeah, Jesus, that kind of sounds like me. Like sometimes I felt I'm a bit different like that. But like it would never occur to me to think that I have ADHD. Do you ever have like I see this a lot with people who they just kind of throw around like, oh my God, I'm so OCD because I do this or that, or like, I think I might be on
It,
the spectrum because I'm a little bit socially awkward. Like, uh,
people,
I would,
yes, that's very frustrating. Yes,
yeah,
when
people
people
who
say that
just kind of
because
like use the term
it's like
to
every day.
excuse bad behavior and
Yes,
stuff.
it's all. This is the problem, right? The symptoms of ADHD are all things people experience at some point. It's just we experience them all the time and multiplied by 10.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like you might, um, have some of the you might have some of the experiences of it, right? But you're not. If we were saying that I'm actually blind and you wear glasses, it's like there's a huge difference. We
Yeah.
both have. We're both.
That's
We're
very
both
fair.
maybe. Yeah, we're both maybe forgetful, or a bit of a black sheep,
Mm.
uh, or stubborn, or hyper focused on certain things, but you don't do it all the time.
Yeah.
It's like there's a difference, really. It's an actual full on impairment, right? So
Mm.
yeah, so both a blind person, someone who wears glasses, have trouble seeing, but there's a
Yeah.
huge difference. That's basically it. But yeah, people do say it's like a superpower. I find that problematic because I've talked to people online who were, maybe on probation from jail and stuff like that, and it's not a superpower for them, and they're
Yeah.
not from a privileged background like me. So you check your privilege is one thing that one of the guys in that podcast would say about it. If you're saying it's a superpower, because if I was born, I'm from a nice middle class family. The way I act out in the world, if and the way I have behaved in my life, if I was um, born into a working class family, I would be dead on heroin or in jail. I can guarantee you that because I've taken some crazy risks over the course of my life because of it.
Mhm.
And yeah, check your privilege if you hear anyone say it's a superpower because it isn't for everybody. But it's an interesting one. Yeah, it's an interesting one. Um, but you're all different, this is the other thing. We're all
Yeah.
different.
I
We are
think,
all different.
yeah,
Yeah.
everybody has certain things that are, yeah, unique to them psychologically. And I also often think sometimes that there's probably multiple, um, I don't really know, like, is ADHD classified as a cognitive disorder or?
It's a neurodiverse is what they the
Yeah, so
best
I've
thing.
often thought like that there's probably multiple types of those out there that haven't yet been classified. I have encountered quite a few people in my life where I've kind of been able to connect dots of being like, these people all kind of seem to have specific quirks to their personality that seem quite similar, like the similar collection of
In
uh
your family.
no, just through life. And
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think it
definitely.
becomes different when we have labels for things then because you can kind of stand back and see how all those things connect and how they can affect somebody's life.
Well, this
Uh,
is it. Like my yeah, like my I can't because we're on a podcast, but there's people in my family who I'm pretty sure have it and don't know it, right? And it's the same with other people that I know. And then
yeah.
what these people say is like it's almost like everyone in my life has ADHD. It's like I'm hearing about this now. It's like, well, that's because there isn't maybe a slight genetic component to it, but it's like if I think that it's normal from growing up in the household, and I'm more likely to become friends with someone
Mm,
who has it. So if you don't have it, one of your parents might have had it, you might then be more attracted to a partner than who has it because you don't see that as a strange behavior. You're used to that.
yeah. Yeah. I
So
get you.
like I know a guy in the gym here who like he doesn't have any friends who are artists because that's just not in his family and he doesn't attract or communicate with people like that or they're just not in his life. So he doesn't have any friends or any relatives who are artists. I have tons of relatives and friends who are artists. And it's a
Okay.
little bit like that. So, it's a little bit like that.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So you see like families of engineers and stuff. It's like that kind of thing. Like
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
all kind of the same, you know. Yeah,
yeah,
they kind of end up they have their brain works the same way, and they end up attracting partners and becoming friends with those kind of people. So that's probably what you're experiencing, I would say.
yeah, yeah. Cool. Okay, well, that's very interesting. I didn't know anywhere near as much about that as I do now.
Yeah,
Um,
their podcast is the best resource for that. Like I'm only parroting stuff I've heard on their podcast, really. But
okay.
yeah, yeah.
And of course, anybody who is listening, I suppose they don't
Mm.
have to have ADHD to want to train with you.
No,
Um,
it's all. If you get
but
overwhelmed easily.
yeah, just or anybody who's looking to get started with training, and anybody can get overwhelmed going into a gym and not knowing
Yeah,
what to
for
do.
sure.
Where
Hmm.
where can people follow you and get in contact with you for training?
So it's at James ADHD Fit Coach on Instagram.
Cool, nice one. You've got all
80,
your
James,
links and stuff
yeah,
on there.
yeah, and then if you want to train with me face to face, I'm in Harold's Cross in SmartFit in Terranure Harold's Cross.
Nice one.
Yeah,
Cool,
just look that up. I'm on the website there. That's the
brilliant.
one.
Well, look, I'm gonna have to wrap it up here because I have to be in the gym to coach someone
Yeah.
myself in about half an hour. But I want to
Mhm.
say thanks a mil for coming on and doing the chat.
Yeah,
Um,
no worries. It's great talking to you.
yeah, man. And yeah, I think people will have taken a lot of value from all the different topics we covered there, everything from
Oh, there was a lot.
injuries to neurodiversity and everything in between.
Yeah.
So great. We'll do it again soon, all right?
Yeah, let's do it again for sure.
Thanks a mil, man.
Take
Take
it
it
easy,
easy,
Kel.
okay?
Good luck. Bye bye.
Cheers.